Good evening, friends. It's Ethan Cook here, one of the deacons at First Baptist Church of West Edmiston. This is Holy Week. This is the climax of our faith as believers in Jesus. This is leading up to the ultimate show of love for the human race by God. Normally, this coming week, this Sunday, Easter, more people go to church on Easter than any other Sunday. But right now we can't do that. We're stuck at home. We're not supposed to go places. And it's sad. And for a Christian, this is the ultimate holiday. This is the joyous time to think about what God has done through his Son for us. And that has reconciled us back to him. So I want to take a second to think about the Gospels and then the life of Jesus. Pastor Ben yesterday in the video said that he wants us to spend some time reading the last few days of Jesus in the Gospels. Those are Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the first 4 books of the New Testament. And so if we go through these Gospels, we see a little bit about Jesus' the pregnancy of Mary, and then we see a little bit about the birth and the first couple years of Jesus, and they flee to Egypt. And then all of a sudden, Jesus is 30, and he's traveling around, and he finds 12 nobodies, 12 strangers, and he goes up to them and he says, "Hey, you, follow me." And they did. They dropped what they were doing. They dropped their nets, which was their profession, their job. They dropped it and followed him. And it makes me wonder, I don't think they truly knew who he was yet, but they knew he was a rabbi. And they wanted the chance to follow a rabbi. So if you're a disciple, you've been called by this rabbi to follow him. You don't know where he's going. You didn't say, "Will I be home for dinner? Where are we going, Jesus?" No, you just said, "Yes, I'll follow you." And so for the first little bit, the disciples are just watching and observing Jesus. And a little bit after that, Jesus asks them to help. They're the one that collects the food. They're the one that goes and finds the boy with the fish so they could feed the thousands. And a little bit after that, because Jesus' ministry is about 3 years, near the end, all of a sudden Jesus is doing less work as they have kind of been trained in. And he has said, "You go 2 by 2, and I want you to go out and heal people. I want you to go out and do miracles." And so if you are a disciple, picture yourself as a disciple, a follower of Jesus for 3 years. Things are awesome. This is the heyday for you as a disciple. Man, things are just so awesome. And we get to the end, Jesus knows what's going to happen, and the disciples don't. So I want to read a passage out of Matthew chapter 16, verses 13 through 20. And they say, "When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea in Philippi, he asked his disciples, 'Who do people say the Son of Man is?' They replied, 'Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others, Jeremiah or one of the prophets.' And Jesus says, 'But what about you? Who do you say I am?' Simon Peter answered, 'You are the Christ, the Son of the living God.' Jesus replied, 'Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by man, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. I will give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." Then he warned the disciples not to tell anyone that he was the Christ. And if you're a Jew at this time, you've been waiting for the Christ. You've been waiting for the Messiah. And so picture yourself as a disciple now. You follow Jesus for 3 years. And after 3 years, you know there's something so special about this guy. So special. Not just the fact that he does miracles, but the way he handles the aggressive attacks from the Pharisees and the Sadducees. He is just an amazing person to be around. I would love to have been able to follow him. So picture yourself as that. And then Jesus says, "Hey, who do people think I am?" And they talk about it. No one really knows who he is. And then we read that passage, and Peter gets it. And it was revealed to him by God in heaven that Jesus is the Christ. the promised one. And then the next passage, or the next verse, Jesus tells them that he's going to die. And so again, this is the heyday of being a disciple. You're being with Jesus, and he's empowered you to go out and heal people. And now your leader is saying that he's going to die. He's not going to be here anymore. And so that's got to be sad. That's got to be really hard to understand. And as we continue through the Holy Week, we're going to get closer to seeing the reactions of the disciples as they go out on the Mount of Olives and try to stay awake and pray and see Jesus sweating blood. And then as we continue right to the cross. And so I want you to follow along on our Facebook and our YouTube page as we continue watching the last few days of Jesus on earth. And not just watching him, but watching the followers that knew who he was and trying to figure out, what does all this mean? And so while you can't be at Easter or a Good Friday service, we want to invite you. We're going to be streaming a Good Friday service, and we're also going to be streaming our Sunday service. We've also got a couple other things. One thing coming up this week for kids, so stay tuned. But again, we just want you to focus on Jesus, not on your own, but as a family. And remember, this is the week that celebrates the most spectacular thing in humanity. God's love for us manifest in the flesh to be sacrificed so that our sins can be taken away. Have a good night.